Uncle Trump has one shot, one opportunity to stop the death of America. One moment with the freedom of vengeance. But what do she win, y'all? Vivek's palms are sweaty, six big job.
Good day, everyone. Today, we welcome Mr. Victor Avila, a retired supervisory special agent with ICE, HSI, U.S. Immigration Customs, and Homeland Security Investigations. And he has been a member of Border 911 Foundation with our fearless border czar, Tom Homan, which we see every day getting the job done. Victor has spent several of the last years investigating, reporting from our southern border. He is a proud Mexican American who knows how dangerous the Mexican cartels really are. Today, he will be addressing what exactly is going on between the Trump administration, our military, and the unique partnership that President Trump negotiated to help defeat the cartels. Welcome to the show, Victor. It's great to see you again, my friend.
Thank you so much, and I'm grateful to be back with you. Thank you.
So let's start from the beginning for the folks who don't know exactly how personal this issue is for you. Explain how the cartels have affected you and your partner, ICE agent Jaime Zapata, please.
Absolutely. This is personal to me. Back in 2011, I was assigned to the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City. And I was working, combating the cartels, the human traffickers, money launderers, and many other things. And on a dubious assignment, Agent Zapata and I were ambushed by Los Zetas cartel that, by the way, we'll talk a little bit further about, are on the list of being designated as foreign terrorist organizations. And it was a dramatic and traumatic event, a violent event when we got ambushed, and tragically, Agent Zapata lost his life in the line of duty. I'm here by the grace of God after being shot 3 times. So I understand the violence, the evilness of these cartels, and more importantly, the threat that we face in the United States, not just because they're in Mexico, but because they're here in the United States. And so I medically retired in 2015, and I haven't stopped in trying to be an advocate for border security, human trafficking awareness, and overall the protection of our sovereignty. And for the first time in a long, long time, I could see that this is finally coming to fruition, and it feels good. It brings a smile to my face.
Although that's wonderful to hear because, we can never forget. And more importantly, I think the folks really need to see a clear perspective of what you've been through, what your family's been through, because, we get very complacent in our lives, working hard, trying to pay our bills. And that was the one thing I think that we've experienced through the years, is seeing kind of a focus on the ugliness of what's been really going on. So let's take a look at a short video of what you have been through in your story that has brought you here. So let's take a look.
Fox News exclusive. We get a first-hand account of what it's like to be caught in an ambush by members of a vicious drug gang. It comes as the long-awaited trial and the case is finally beginning. Here's Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge.
Targeted by the notorious Zetas drug cartel, 2 Homeland Security agents were under fire inside this armored SUV on Mexico's Highway 57.
He told me that he was going to die.
Speaking exclusively to Fox, retired Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent Victor Avila shares new details about the February 2011 ambush that killed his partner, ICE agent Jaime Zapata, and nearly cost Avila his own life.
Firearms that were recovered at the scene were weapons purchased in Dallas, Texas.
After picking up equipment from the Monterrey, Mexico office, cartel members tracked their SUV, forcing it off the highway.
One of the assailants came directly over to Jaime's door and opened the door.
Why was the door open?
The Suburban was programmed to unlock the doors when the vehicle was placed in park. Jaime immediately closes the door back. We start hitting the lock buttons.
And in the process, the frantic agents may have hit the window button.
the armored window had been rolled down approximately 2 inches. I see Jaime get hit on his side, on his torso. Very chaotic. I was shaking him. I remember even slapping him at times to keep him awake. I told him that he wasn't going to die, that I was calling for help.
Avila's wife, Claudia, worked at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City when the call came in.
I'm thinking it's him on the line, and people are now holding me down, telling me, calm down.
After medical treatment, Avila says he felt unwelcome by the agency and left government service, as his search for answers uncovered undeniable facts. Avila says his supervisors discarded the security warning that prohibited travel on Highway 57.
Is this like a smoking gun?
It states clearly that you are just not allowed to travel on that because of the high level of violence.
And these government records show at least one weapon came from Texas. Avila believes there is a connection to the 2010 murder of border agent Brian Terry.
It goes to show that the weapons were so widely dispersed to the cartel members that the U.S. government had no idea where these weapons were.
This week, Avila testified at the district court in Washington, D.C. against 2 cartel members charged with Zapata's murder and Avila's attempted murder. And now he's calling for congressional action. In Washington, Catherine Herridge, Fox News.
So, Victor, I never get tired of seeing, unfortunately, the passion of your story. I also know you wrote a book about the experience, and you also went to court. And started this fight and exposing, the corruption, because there's certainly a relationship between the United States and Mexico that has to be acknowledged, and some of it good, and some of it obviously not so good. I think over the last few years, most Americans have recognized, if they're awake, that is, that the cartels are really involved beyond what we would think here in the United States. So explain to us what President Trump's plan is with Mexico, because I think some of us kind of are very interested. We don't really know what's going on. I think you have more of an insight. So tell us what's going on.
Well, it's unprecedented to begin. One of the things that I've been advocating for many years, President Trump, and now as early as this week, our Secretary of State Marco Rubio solidified that under the State Department to categorize or designate 8 of these groups as foreign terrorist organizations. And the list that came out, let me tell you, I agree with it 100% because these are the major cartels in Mexico. And even though there's a lot of factions underneath these cartels, and they even go by their own names, they still report kind of under umbrella to Sinaloa Cartel, Cartel Jalisco New Generation, Rosetta, CDN, the Gulf. You'll see that list, and you'll see you'll probably never heard of them, but I've heard of them, like La Familia Michoacana. And like, who's that? Well, it's a big cartel in the interior of Mexico. And so the designation is a game changer for several reasons. So one thing, and I really want to talk about Mexico and the relationship, because this is in the middle of all of this. As we speak today, the Mexican diplomats and American diplomats are talking, and they're having diplomatic talks about what is to happen. As you remember, President Trump pulled back the 25% tariffs on Mexico, giving them basically, I believe, one last chance. And Mexico deployed 10,000 of their National Guardsmen. And remind me to tell you a little bit about the National Guard, because you talk about corruption. We have a big issue with the Mexican National Guard. Anyway, Mexico deploys them, and Trump pulls back the tariffs, and he gives them 30 days. Well, in between the 30 days, he designates the cartels. They're officially designated. And what does that mean? Well, these are now terrorist organizations. So I need people to understand that they are just like ISIS, just like the Taliban, just like Al Qaeda. The same. They're on the same platform. They're in the same category. And a lot of people push back and tell me, well, it can't be the same because, Al Qaeda. They want to kill us because we're Western. I don't care about the ideology. The ideology is not the reason why they're designated. It's because of their actions. And as a matter of fact, I do this presentation for law enforcement and other groups, and I have two pictures when I start off the presentation, one of the cartel and one of a terrorist group, and I want them to tell me the difference, and they can't. And as a matter of fact, the description of what the cartels do way outweighs the description of the terrorists, because the cartels are responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths, American deaths, not just the Mexican deaths, of course, in Mexico. They've been terrorizing them for a long time. But the Americans, with the fentanyl poisoning that they've been killing our youth, and for some reason, I don't understand why people don't react, because so they're not bombing us and they're not shooting at us with bullets, but they're killing us with these illicit pills and the fentanyl and the methamphetamine and lacing all these other drugs with these chemicals and xylazine and other stuff. That's warfare for me. Death is death. And so President Trump recognizes that, and therefore comes a designation. The other reason is because the cartels are not just drug cartels anymore. These organizations are involved in not just human trafficking and human smuggling, of course, and money laundering, a lot of money laundering, but they're also involved in the lime trade, the avocado trade, the mango trade, the steel trade, the petroleum trade. And when I say involved, I mean extortion. And they've been extorting and terrorizing the farmers for many, many years. As a matter of fact, if you have a business in Mexico today, you're going to get a knock on the door by a cartel member asking for their percentage, their cut. And the Mexican the citizens are sick and tired of being extorted, of the kidnappings, of the murders, of the rapes, of the terrorism. Because what do the cartels do? They use bombs, and they use car bombs. They use bombs from drones. Of course, they're very violent and have military grade weapons. So this is the picture. Oh, on top of that, guess what? They have billions of dollars with a B, which allows them to function in 65 countries around the world. And so Mexico is their headquarters. The US is their second closest, and they're present in Europe and Asia and many other places. And so that impact is going to finally, we're going to put a measure to it. How? Let me tell you really quick. Well, President Trump has obviously knew that this designation and was going to be official through the State Department, and he had already deployed military to the border. As a matter of fact, there was a leak about the drones. CIA was already flying drones in Mexico, obtaining intelligence on. They say there's about 100 super labs in Mexico around the entire country of meth labs and fentanyl labs.
When did
So
that start, by the way, with the drones?
it
And
actually started under Biden. It actually started under
really,
Biden. Yeah, it did. And it was supposed to be a covert operation. Obviously, there's a leak now. Everybody knows the drones are up there. But what's not covert is that Mexican government has allowed our military planes to patrol the skies along the border, especially around Arizona-Mexico border, the Sonoran Desert area. And why are we doing this? Oh, and we sent special forces just last week, special forces, U.S. special forces, to train Mexican Marines, special forces. I think is more than just training, and that's been allowed by the Mexican government. And so all of this, what does all this mean? Well, I think this is the foundation that the United States is laying down for possible and bigger enforcement against the cartels. What does that enforcement look like? I don't know. I don't believe it's going to be military intervention immediately. A lot of people think that, oh, they're terrorists, want to go in there and bomb them all. Not initially, and maybe never. But it's on the table, and that's what changes. But what it does do is it brings DoD resources to the table. It allows the U.S. government to take down and seize all of their assets and their money and their bank accounts and their properties and the reason why the cartels exist. So we're going to hurt them financially, which will hurt the cartels. That's their ideology. It's money and power. So let's hit them where it hurts, and it will. And of course, yes, we have to take out these labs. We do eventually have to capture and possibly kill some of these evildoers. Don't feel any sympathy for them. These people will skin you alive and burn you alive and cut your head while you're alive and play soccer with your human head. They'll take the heart out of your chest and hold it in front of them while it's still beating and you're still alive watching it. This is the savage, and I apologize for the description, but I have to be graphic, and there's way more graphic than that because these people are medieval in their actions against another human beings. Then you talk about children. Then you talk about the sex trade, and that's something that I did in my career. Unimaginable, gruesome violence against children, force, fraud, coercion. And this is what these guys, why they do. Why? Because of the money that's been produced by the smuggling and the trafficking of these women and children. So here we are, right? So one thing is the enforcement in Mexico and the border. That's good. But what I've been saying and what I've been concentrating on is the enforcement of the cartels that are present here. This is my concern. The cartel is in every major city in our 50 states, and they're heavily present here. My concern is we need to get those guys here, identify them, because I don't know. I could tell you and speculate that I feel there will be a retaliation by the cartels. These guys are not going to throw their arms up in the air and say, "Oh, that's it, we're done." No, they're still going to want to bring the fentanyl across the border. They're still going to smuggle the people, and they're going to do it covertly, and they're going to sneak it in as much, any which way they can. But the people, the cartel members that are here, a lot of them illegal, by the way, how are they going to retaliate? Are they going to want to kill our police officers? Are they going to kill our border patrol agents? Are they going to want to kill us civilians to make a statement? Because they're terrorists. Remember, they'll kill civilians and innocent people in a snap of a finger. So that's the concern. This is where we really need the help of the locals, the state police, the local police. Right now they don't want to help Tom Homan because they're a sanctuary city. This goes beyond that. This has nothing to do with illegal immigration. This has to do with national security. This has to do with public safety. And they will have no excuse. They've been hiding behind the immigration excuse of not letting Tom and ICE go into the jails and all that. And we have to go find them at the houses and businesses and all that. Well, there's no excuse. These are terrorists now. Here's another thing really quick. The people that associate and with the cartels in our country, gang members, other drug dealers, whatever, you are now associating with a terrorist organization. You are now financing a terrorist organization. So it's the same thing. If you were financing ISIS and you were talking to ISIS, you're going to get a knock on your door, right? Well, it's going to be the same thing here. We're going to go pick you up and possibly take you to Gitmo as a terrorist because you're doing exactly what you're not supposed to do with terrorists. And all these gang members, the Latin Kings and the 18th Street Gang and the Black Gangster Disciples and all these gangs, these huge gangs in the U.S. that work directly with Sinaloa Cartel, Cartel Jalisco New Generation, who are now terrorists, you are now a terrorist too. And I think that's how you start dismantling these groups, because I believe that these gangs and the people here in the U.S. associated with the terrorists are not going to want to. They're going to say, "No, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not just a drug pusher." Well, they're going to start dismounting because they're not going to want to work with them. And that's a good effect. But I'm saying it very, very nonchalantly, but it's very cumbersome. It's a hard task. It requires everyone on board. But I think the American people asked for this. This is what we want, to finally clean up our streets and our schools.
Well, Victor, this is making a whole lot of sense because, we see Tom Homan, your friend, our friend, Tom Homan, working every day with massive amount of heroes working together on a team to go in and try to get these violent illegals out. They know who they are. They know mostly, they know
Oh,
what
yeah.
they're looking for. So, our governors, our mayors can choose to help make it easier, or they'll make it harder. The people are seeing this. They see what's going on in Illinois and the pushback that makes absolutely no sense. And that's why I think also in New York, from my home state, my original home state, you see Mayor Adams caving and being like, no, we're going to create an ISIS facility on Rikers Island so that when they are arrested, they could go directly instead of going back to the population of the innocent people. My question to you is this, because cartels do not work in a bubble. We know that they fund politicians. We know that they cut deals and they get themselves around. They're very sophisticated in that kind of way of entrenching themselves to have more momentum and easier ways of facilitating their evil that they do and be undercover. What are your thoughts? Because President Claudia Sheinbaum, uh, whatever you think about her, I was very surprised because I didn't think much of her, to be quite honest with you, being that she's more, kind of communist than, constitutional freedom type of person.
Right.
And I was very surprised that she allowed this union, this plan with President Trump. Tell me, what are your thoughts of how she really feels, and what is her role really in this?
Very great question. I appreciate that because Claudia Sheinbaum is a communist. No doubt about that. And her ideology is very different that of the United States and freedom and all that. She is caught right now in a very difficult position of between her party, which is called La Morena, which is a far left socialist communist group, and President Trump. She's right there in the middle. She's trying to appease her party and their ideology of moving forward with everything that they want to do in Mexico, yet can't do it because President Trump has been putting on the pressure with the tariffs and forcing them to do something. Remember, Mexico allowed millions of people, including the cartels, to come through their country and invade ours. And they did nothing about it. Don't forget about that. They're not our friend and they're not our partner. And when I say that, a lot of people push back. Oh, how dare you say that? I'm telling you the truth. If they were our friend and they were our partner, they would be joining forces with us to combat the evilness of the cartels, because not only would that benefit the United States, it would benefit Mexico. It would clean up Mexico. Like I said before, they're sick and tired of the corruption involved in every aspect in Mexico's culture. This is the truth. Not just the police, and I'm talking about in every aspect of their culture, all the way up to the presidency. The corruption is rampant. It's a cancer there. So it's very difficult to you might cancer, you might get it from one place, but it spreads somewhere else. And that's exactly what's happening in Mexico. It's been happening for many years. But with Claudia Sheinbaum, and it's a very unique situation. I just read an article this morning before I came on with you that she's trying to possibly change the Mexican Constitution to where it would actually protect the cartels. You see, the big difference here in the evolution of the cartels in the last 10, 15 years is that the politicians, the corrupt politicians in Mexico, controlled that. They controlled the cartels. They ordered the cartels what they wanted to do, and they got their kickbacks and their money and their properties and whatever. That's not the case anymore. It's the other way around now. The cartels control Mexico and control the politicians, and they control who is in there to quote unquote represent them. And so the cartels, these organized groups, terrorists, are dictating to them. It's very different because the way we've known it many years and all my career is understand the corruption. Even when I was in Mexico, two of the highest officials that I work with are in custody, one in New York and one in Mexico. They're Sinaloa cartel members. So we understand the corruption and the membership of some of these corrupt officials with the cartels. But that's the biggest shift here, is that they have the upper hand in Mexico now. They have a control. They've been running a parallel government there for several years now. And that is the biggest difference. That's why the designation is so important. Now, speaking of Claudia Sheinbaum, she's going to have a very, very important decision to make here, because she is the cartel. She is the Mexican government. Now, I want to say something I generalize. Not everyone in Mexico is corrupt. There are good people in Mexico. There are good police officers. There are good federal agents that want to do good. Not everybody's corrupt, but there's a big, big majority of them there are. Heck, look in the mirror. We're very corrupt in the United States too. There's an excuse here. It's just that ours has been hidden for many years, and now you're seeing the exposure, right?
Right.
But Mexico has been blatant. It's blatant, and that's why they don't care. But that's why the cartel's reaction is going to be very important. They're not going to go down. They have the capabilities of shooting one of our planes down. They do have those capabilities. So what I'm saying is, understand the cartels so you can be able to then react to what they do. It doesn't mean, oh, they're no match for our military. I understand that. Our military can go and wipe them off the face of this earth whenever they want, but that's not the point. That doesn't mean that they can't kill some of us and they can't cause harm. They obviously can. And they have special forces people working for them, and they have highly trained people. Plus, the level of intelligence that these groups have, not just in Mexico, throughout the United States. They have people in our courthouses, they have attorneys, they have people everywhere giving them information. They know exactly what is going on. We now have the capabilities of gaining the upper hand on the intel above them and in front of them, so we can, be more proactive rather than reactive. And that's going to be the major change here. But the Mexican government is going to have a huge, huge burden here in the next couple of weeks, because the month is going to come up and President Trump is going to say, all right, what did you do, or what are we going to do? Oh, speaking, before I forget about the Mexican National Guard, they're very corrupt. I mean, they didn't put the Army, they didn't put the Marines, they put the Mexican National Guard, which is knowingly very corrupt. Again, not all of them are corrupt, but there's a lot of them they are. I got videos of them using cocaine while in uniform. There was a big extortion. So just a couple of days ago, a big Sinaloa cartel member was arrested, and he's in Mexico City, and apparently he's going to be extradited to the U.S. Good. But the part that didn't tell you is that he had actually been arrested a few weeks back by the Mexican National Guard, and they demanded a $10 million payment, which the Sinaloa cartel did pay, and the National Guard stabbed him in the back and still had him arrested later. This is big. This is corruption at the highest levels. Money, the money laundering. Really quick, the money that's generated by the cartels is billions of dollars. What do they do with that money? Well, they have a lot of cash around. A lot of it is in Mexico, but the majority of it is involved in the world banking system, starting with the United States. So if you would remove the illicit funds of the cartels from certain banks, those banks would collapse, especially along the border, because they function based on that money. That's why it's laundering. They're cleaning up this money, and they have it involved in anything that you can imagine. If you can think of the business, the cartel has your money in there. Mortgages, used car lots, retail. You think about it, and they are laundering their money that way. And eventually, believe it or not, some of these businesses become legitimate businesses after they've been laundered. And so now you have that to deal with as well. So when you cut off that funds, when you go towards the money, think of Doge and what Doge is doing. When you identify the illicit funds, it's going to have a major impact.
So let me ask you before we let you go today, because obviously your plethora of knowledge, we have to have you back on again regularly. I say this every time I interview you, Victor, because you have the inside scoop on everything. This topic is so personal and so obviously, you're from Mexico City, your family's been involved in politics, you know the ins and outs on both ends, which is very rare and also very valuable. But be honest with us. Do you think this issue will be resolved anytime soon, even with this great administration who's working on it? Or is this something that is going to hurt us for quite a while still?
My honest assessment, I believe it's gonna get ugly before it gets better. But I'm an optimistic guy. It's going to be for the greater good of both countries, as a matter of fact. As a matter of fact, of a lot of people. But it's going to be ugly, and I foresee unprecedented type of action against Mexico that has never happened ever before. And it might be military, it might be other ways, but it's going to be a conflict. It's going to be a conflict, and the big conflict here is trade. Let's not forget about it. 84% of the things, the goods that come through that southern border come to the United States from Mexico. 84%. If President Trump, just with the 25% tariff, would devastate Mexico, would devastate. So it'll hurt us a little bit. We might not get our goods, and we might, it'll take us a while to get our furniture, whatever's coming through that southern border. But we're in a better standing than Mexico economically, and they are not, and they depend on that multi-billion-dollar trade. And this is where I think where the rubber meets the road, and we are at a point where America first has to be. This is where you actually make the decision of putting America first, because eventually by putting America first, you're actually going to be helping other nations. And in this case, it'll be Mexico and Central America and other nations by
Amen.
removing the illegals and everything that we're doing, right? But
Which really are
it
fighting
doesn't
evil.
mean that it's not going to be with some sacrifice at first, and unfortunately, possibly some loss of life.
So here's the hardest question for you. Uh, I don't know if you want to answer it, but what do you think honestly, about the Gulf of America?
I love it. I love the name. That's not a difficult question. That's the easiest one.
I was kidding. I was kidding. But you know what? I always
Mexico is
say,
having a fit. Mexico's having a fit over there because, first of all, this is North America, and Mexico is part of it. They should be embracing it, and they're not, and they're trying to sue, and
Google. They want to sue Google,
they want to
Claudia.
sue Google for changing on the maps, and I love it. This is the symbolism, right? Because it's a name, but this is the genius of President Trump is the symbolism and the message that it sends around the world. Because everything that we're doing here is obviously for America, but obviously there's a ripple effect throughout the world, and that ripple effect, I can see the waves going over there and affecting everybody. Look at the reaction of many other groups around the world. Even Europe is seeing a reduction of illegal immigration. How does that work? They haven't done anything. Look at Germany is in shambles because they opened their borders, and it's full of African nation people and rapes and all the craziness that's happening over there. And then they wonder why it's happening. But Trump comes in and those numbers drop over there. And so I love the positive effect that it's going to have on everyone.
And I'll tell you, I'm originally from Greek, so I'm Greek American, and I never thought in decades in my country, Greece, okay, all of a sudden we have this female politician who's like Miss Trump. She's like the female version. And
Yeah.
when I hear her speak, I get the chills up my spine because it's all about the freedom and the patriotism of being able to be self-sustainable and to actually work for what you have and be able to not be constricted by big government or by the European community or anything else. So I think President Trump, we have to say thank you so much because his kind of authoritarian, which is really practical, reasonable,
Common sense.
freedom to the peace. Yes, 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 Victor, is contagious because it's a humanitarian perspective, really. So thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you for all you do. Please send our regards to Tom Holman. We love him. Tell him that we're behind him 100%. We're behind you as always. And we look forward to hearing you again on the insides because the people need to know all the winning because we're never going to get tired of it. It may
No,
hurt a little bit, but we're on the right trajectory for sure. Thank you so much. God bless you.
thank you very much.